We are moving through corporate spaces almost like zombies. We don't know why people are acting the way they are, what programs we're being asked to participate in. Are they really helping us? Are they solving problems? Are they made for us? Are they tailored to help us win? And today we're going to answer some of those questions with an organizational psychologist, Dianhan, who is going to help us understand how behavior shapes the way we work and how some of these structures are meant to solve real problems. Tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background, and what does an organizational psychologist do?
Sure. So my name is Dianhan Zheng, and I'm currently an associate professor in the psychological science department at Kennesaw State University. My background is in industrial and organizational psychology. So it is a subfield of psychology that studies workplace. So we focus on how to select employees, the kind of tests you can use in your personnel selection process, how do you design your performance appraisal system or training system. And so my area is mainly on the social side of the organization. So seeing the organization as a social system, so how things like emotions and attitudes and behavior, they all kind of interact with each other. And I also have conducted research on employee well-being and leadership. So that is just kind of like, a crash course of, what organizational psychology really is. And I think I've been in my position for the past 6 years.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we love to hear there are people who are actually thinking about how we show up to work and the systems and the structures that are put in place. I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to fill in the sentence, fill in the blank.
Okay.
Corporate behavior is
performative.
Mm-hmm. I co-sign.
I think each organization has its unique rules that we all have to adhere to when it comes to, how we express ourselves. We can't just show up at work and showing our true emotion all the time. So in my field of study, we actually have a term, I think it's a perfect term for this kind of behavior. It's called emotional labor. So you just have to put on a mask sometimes in order to be able to, maintain your professional image to perform your job at the best of your capacity.
When you think about this emotional labor and how people want to show up at work, we talked to some Gen Z future corporate leaders, and they said, authenticity was a non-negotiable for them. They have to be able to show up to work as their authentic self. One of them said 90%. They want to show up to work as 90% of themselves. So when you think about authenticity at work, 90%, 10%, is authenticity at all possible when the rewards go to the people who conform, who perform, to your point, who don't really step out of line? Do you think it's even possible to be authentic at work? And if so, how do we do it?
That's such a great question. So I think I want to start with some background research in the idea of authenticity, because I know there's a lot of public interest about, we should really promote authenticity in the workplace. So I think in psychological research, we distinguish between felt authenticity, so your own feeling that you're really being true to yourself in the workplace, and also perceived authenticity, which is how much other people perceive you as being your authentic self. So I think the good news is that according to research, both type of authenticity, being felt or perceived, are related to beneficial outcomes. When you feel authentic or being perceived as authentic, we tend to have better work engagement. We tend to have higher psychological well-being, and some research even pointed to higher job performance. So it's something that we do to benefit ourselves and also for the organization. So I think that's the good news. It's beneficial.
Yes.
It's not, just dysfunctional, or it actually has demonstrable positive effects for both the employees and the organizations. However, I think the paradox here is that it doesn't mean that we should just be true to ourselves, bring full, unfiltered authenticity to the workplace. As we discussed, sometimes people get punished for not following emotional display rules in the workplace. So I recently read an article, it's a theoretical article about how people should practice authenticity more strategically. So I think instead of thinking our own authenticity as a fixed trait that we bring to every single interaction, every situation, we should probably see it as a state. So am I being authentic in a particular interaction? Because I think how we think about ourselves and how other people perceive us are really made up of these small moments, right? So what are some of the things we can do to practice authenticity more strategically? So the New York University professor who wrote this article talked about two kinds of signaling strategies that people could use. One is through self-expression, so being vulnerable in certain situations definitely adds to your authenticity. And the other one is actually do something a little bit unexpected, so be spontaneous, right? And which type of strategy you can use also depends on the specific situation you find yourself in. So if we think about all sorts of situations or interactions we have with people in organizational settings, I think we can kind of roughly group them into two categories. So in some situations, it's more like, masculine. You have to show that you're ambitious, you're achievement driven.
Right.
So in these more agentic kind of situations, I think it wouldn't hurt to be spontaneous from time to time, right? So for example, if you're meeting with your subordinate who is not performing very well, you're giving a negative performance feedback, which could be awkward for all of us. So I think one way in these kind of more achievement-oriented, masculine kind of environments or interaction, maybe pause it a little bit and say, oh, let's, do you mind going grab a cup of coffee with me so we can talk about this, right? I think it shows you're carrying your authenticity in that particular situation.
I love that. I love this notion of the range of authenticity and making it a state of being. I think we were just talking about that before we started filming, about how when my family, depending on which side of the family comes over, or depending on who in the family comes over, there's a range of authenticity I have. If my sister comes over, there's a different range of authenticity. If I have friends over, I'm still myself mostly, but the percentages and how I showcase that authenticity might change a little bit. And it sounds like you're not saying be something different depending on who you're talking to, but showcase your authenticity in a different way. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think when it comes to practicing your authenticity strategically, kind of related to what you said, we should always think about focus on the specific domain. So I think it's more important to be authentic about your own values, your, worldviews, instead of, just focusing on every passing feelings or emotion.
Ooh,
so I think that is very important, because I think, sometimes people quit their job because they don't get paid enough. But I think most of the times people would want to quit their job if they feel like they are not authentic. Their work does not allow that authenticity about their what they believe, their true values. So I think that's important as well.
That is important. It's really important. So being authentic and true to your values, almost less than just personal preferences and how you show up. I think it's just a higher order and how we should start thinking about authenticity. That's really smart. Women of color and kind of women in general in corporate environments, they have a lot of burnout. They are in dual roles. Either they're caregivers at home, their wives, their mothers, and then they go into the office and they get the busy work. They kind of get the labor, the work that sometimes the men just don't do. It kind of falls to women. And I don't even know if it's intentional, but you start being the person who plans the parties and being the person who, takes on all these tasks that aren't in your job description and so on and so on. There's so many different factors that contribute to that burnout. So as an organizational psychologist, what do you think the biggest barrier we need to start dismantling in corporate culture to help us just be on the same playing field, have a level playing field in how we show up and how we maintain just a level of sanity?
Sure. That's a great question. So I think I want to start by saying that, I guess we need to, start with a little bit of nuances here, because I think when we talk about women or women of color, we're actually a very diverse group, right?
Yes.
So we all look differently.
Yes,
we all have different upbringing, backgrounds, and experience, personality, roles, or family situations. So I think there's no universal fix to all of our issues, I guess. So I think if I have to talk about maybe just one thing people can do to support women of color at work, to enhance their work experience, I think probably the most actionable item is, sponsoring them. So that, I guess I want to kind of talk about the difference between, I think we talk a lot about mentorship and sponsorship.
What is the difference? Mentorship, sponsorship, I know.
Yes. So I think mentorship is more about just providing support, giving them support, guidance, just helping them along the way. But I think sponsors, they go above and beyond that. So they still do what mentors do, but they also are your biggest advocates. They amplify your impact. They are willing to put their social capital on the line for your career. So I think the difference is important to notice here. So I think being a sponsor for women of color means that you need to actively seek out the opportunities to include them in your network. You need to, actually think about what are some of the, high visibility project or tasks that I can give to them that would align perfectly well with the unique skill sets they're bringing to the workplace. And I think at the same time, I also want to stress the importance of our own proactive role in the process, because we just can't rely on other people's generosity to, climb the corporate ladder, right? So I think as women of color, we should really understand what the organization's priorities are, so we can cultivate that kind of skills and competencies that the organization truly values, instead of spending a lot of time on what you talked about, right? These invisible tasks. And I think it's also important for us to kind of self-select ourselves into a more equitable, more supportive environment. Because
What
I
do
think
you mean by that? Like when you say
think
self-select ourselves, like what is that?
just, look out those environments or workplaces that are known for being supportive and friendly. I think there are a lot of, places you can find out that information,
there
right?
Are a lot of places, Glassdoor, and their social media is really
because I think it's if you work at a place where the structural barrier already exists for a really long time, it's kind of hard for you to, just single-handedly dismantle that, right? And also, I think seeking out more challenging opportunities is also very important, instead of just, shying away from those kind of tasks or projects. So we definitely need to play an active role in our own corporate life as well. And I think another point I think would be really important is that we need to always keep in mind that it's not a us versus everybody else mentality. It's not a men versus women. It's not a women of color versus everybody else mentality, because I think this kind of mentality kind of promotes victimhood. It's creates division. It might reduce collaboration. So have an open mind. Sometimes your sponsor can be found in the most unexpected place.
Right.
So,
right. I think it's so funny. We also had a conversation a while back with our Gen Z guests about Black women, and they were Black women, young Black women of Gen Z demographic, reporting into older Black women and how they've seen this friction that sometimes happens depending on who it is, right? And so we talked a little bit about that, but I think it's interesting that you say look for those sponsorships in people who might not look like you, because the bias, or not even bias, but why someone may sponsor you or not sponsor you might have everything to do with themselves and not necessarily to do with you. And so looking for someone who has a different life experience, might have had a different experience, even if it's a white male who has climbed the corporate ladder easier, that sponsor might help you understand how to climb the corporate ladder easier, giving you some tips. So I think that's really interesting, and just making sure you're not seeking out the same particular type of person. And I love the self-selection, that interviewing the interviewer to understand what kind of culture are you all cultivating within this organization, and is it a culture of growth and support and sponsorship? I think that's a great point. So to this end, we are in a very interesting time, I would say, in corporate America and maybe across the world, where we've seen a shift in the support of some of the DE&I programs and initiatives, just a refocus and a different perspective on some of those programs. Do you think the work we've done to this point has made a difference? Do you think there's still more work to do? And what should we be thinking about when we start to look towards the future? What do we dismantle? What are these programs doing to help us? Are we really doing anything, or are we just rebranding, the same dysfunction with a different title?
Okay, so I think
lots of questions in there.
So I think in terms of that, there's good news and bad news.
Okay, let me put my. All right.
So I think we know that a lot of corporates are kind of walking back from their, DEI initiatives, and for a reason, because I think a lot of them were probably not been doing it in the right way. Because if you think about how most of the companies do that, they just have these very generic program that's, you kind of sign up in the last minutes, right? And you don't read, or as a part of your onboarding process. And the main goal of those training or programs is to reduce our bias towards, different groups and raise awareness. So in terms of that, these trainings, they do a good job changing our attitudes immediately after the training. But does it really change our behavior? That's what we really care about, right? So based on a lot of research focusing on diversity training, the bad news is that it doesn't really drive long-term behavioral changes.
Interesting.
Yeah, and a lot of issue is also, I think another main issue is that these corporates, they are not kind of tracking what they've done, and they're not actually analyzing their data from these training programs to see if it actually leads to any positive impact. So I guess that's the bad news. From what we know, a lot of these DEI training, DEI programs that
not doing a thing.
Companies spend thousands of dollars each year on, we don't really see enough evidence that they're really driving long-term behavioral changes.
Dianhan, I need some good news. That's
where I'm going to talk about next.
Yes, like what's the good side of
But it doesn't mean that we should just abandon that, right? I think we should just reinvent these programs. There are definitely better ways to conduct these diversity programs. For example, this was just published a few months ago. So I think Harvard Business School professor did this experiment, this field experiment in a huge telecommunication company. So they found that there are a few ingredients you can kind of embed into your diversity training that would actually drive behavioral changes. So the first thing they looked at is the timing of the training. So they actually gave the diversity training. It's just a 7-minute video. So they actually gave the diversity training to a group of hiring managers. And I think over 80% of these hiring managers were men, right before they were supposed to shortlist candidates for the positions that they are hiring for. So timing is absolutely necessary.
Yes.
And another thing is that instead of using these third-party created, like poorly animated films, they actually had their executive from the company telling them what they should do, the importance of this.
Right. So there's like an emotional connection.
Yes. And
to the message.
And I think it should also be tailored to the specific tasks that these hiring managers are working on. So in this situation, it's hiring. So the video or the training specifically talk about, the importance of, hiring people from different backgrounds in just the hiring situation, not just kind of highlighting, overall diversity is important for us.
Right.
Yeah. So they actually did see that those hiring managers who who viewed that 7 minutes video compared to the other the control conditions, they were more likely to shortlist women for the position they were hiring. And the benefit was especially significant for women who were non-nationals. So they were actually more likely to make hiring decision for those non-national women in that female candidates in that situation. So there are definitely things we can do better.
Yeah. I love this notion of, I think the randomness of some of the programs, even when you think about wellness programs and well-being programs, that makes so much sense to think when I was expecting for the first time, I was very interested in how to care for my body, how to eat, how to, get more rest and sleep. So it's almost like, what is the task and what are you trying to do better? And then you kind of introduce that training closer to one of those moments, right? Is that kind of the approach
so
there?
It needs to have good timing, and it needs to be more specific about what we're trying to promote here.
I love that. So I love what you said about just the intentionality about the programs we develop. What's another program you think we aren't paying enough attention to, and what should we be focused on?
I think a lot of these wellness programs that focus on, promoting healthy eating or behavior, I think there's not enough evidence to suggest that they promote actual behavioral changes
wow.
either. So I guess that's another bad news.
I guess another bad news. Wow.
Yeah, but I think, but it's still important to have these programs in place because I think it signals or it conveys to your employees the idea that, we actually, care about your health, right? It's just, how we can make these programs better, more relevant to, employees' daily life. So I think that leads to my next point, which is that I think, we should really make a distinction about these programs that are more symbolic, that doesn't really, do much versus the programs that would really, create the belief in the employees that, actually they're rooting for me. They want me to be good, to have better mental health. So, for example, providing support for employees, work-life balance, such as paid family leave, such as, even on-site childcare. So all of these programs that actually solve a problem for the workers could have more long-lasting impact. So when you actually invest in these programs that really supports work-life balance, we also see an increase on organizational diversity. So
I love that. So
those are
picking programs that actually
solve a problem.
Problems for people.
Yes.
You can think about, when I was in corporate early on and we were raising our family, I would think about all the time, like I have to get off work to go, is the traffic going to be bad if I have to go pick up my baby? And is he going to be the last one at daycare? And then so around 3, you start taking your focus from the work and start thinking about your child and the commute and all the things instead of, I can just go downstairs when I'm done, pick my baby up and we'll be on our way. Maybe we'll sit in traffic. But I think this notion of creating programs that specifically solve issues for people, why do companies just pick programs that don't solve problems? Is it just to check a box? Is it what the board wants? Like, what do you think the reason behind that is?
I think it can be both. I think a lot of times they just want to, maybe in the hiring process, we just want to show you that, we have all of these perks, right? But your action probably conveys the complete opposite, right? So you could say, we value work-life balance. We want you to, be healthy, but at the same time, we expect you to work like 10 hours a day.
Right.
So that completely contradicts what you claim, right? So I think, and also I think another aspect of it is just a lot of companies doing not a great job in actually tracking or monitoring or analyzing the actual impacts of these programs. So it just creates the kind of delusion that, nothing wrong, so there's nothing to be fixed.
Right. So not broken, don't fix it.
Yeah,
all right. Last question here. I think it's such a fascinating field, organizational psychology. And I think there was a show, I think it was called Billions or something. And they used to have this psychologist or psychiatrist. I don't remember what she was. And she would just sit and have sessions with the executives because it was high pressure, high stakes. Why should we be embedding this type of role, this type of person into corporate structures? Like, what's the benefit of it?
Okay, so I think we wear many hats. So some of us do focus more on the assessment of things. So we develop tools so companies can have the best talents, and some of us focus more on, like analyzing the data. So I think a lot of problems we talk about, just companies not doing a good job tracking these programs. I think that's one area that a lot of organizational psychologists in applied setting focus on. And I think one thing I want to be clear about is that we are not therapists for executives.
Okay, so
I'm not
Billions
trained.
Example is not that.
Yeah, I'm not trained for that.
Yes.
So I think we're trained more on just the, how to better design the psychological aspects of things, how to design assessments or surveys to understand employee sentiments. And based on these information we collected, how can we make the organization a better place for the employees?
And do you see a lot of companies doing that? Like, are they employing organizational psychologists?
Actually, yes. So I think a lot of the friends I went to graduate school with, they work in corporates.
Oh, good.
So I have friends who worked at Google, who work at Netflix, in different functions, but all kind of related to HR or, organizational effectiveness. So a lot of companies, they do hire people from my discipline.
I love that. Well, this is such a helpful conversation as we continue to navigate these corporate spaces. I want to remember some of what you talked about, just how we show up with authenticity, but making sure it kind of, is unique to the situation, not necessarily changing who you are, but changing how you approach it. I think there's so much to be learned about just how we show up and why we show up and what motivates us to continue to show up. So I'm glad that I know someone in this space who's helping us solve those problems. And I really appreciate you sharing your research and your background with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Maya. Happy to be here.
Thank you.